So let's get one thing straight. Today, we're not talking about some dry academic subject. We're talking about a serious upgrade for your brain. This is game theory, but I want you to forget the complex math for a minute. Just think of it as a powerful new way to learn how to think. It's like installing a whole new operating system for your mind.
And that's not just a casual statement, it's a promise. The whole idea here is that if you really truly commit to this way of thinking, there are three profound benefits just waiting for you. This is the central idea, so let's really dig into what those benefits are.
So, what is this powerful promise actually built on? Well, it all rests on three core pillars. We're going to explore each one and see how it can totally change the way you see yourself, the world around you, and even your own future.
All right, here's our roadmap. First, we'll talk about what this new way of thinking actually is. Then, we'll dive right into those three pillars: becoming a better you, making sense of a weirder world, and seeing a much clearer future. And finally, we'll wrap up by talking about what it really takes to play this lifelong game.
Okay, so before we even get to the pillars, let's look at the foundation itself. Game theory, at least the way we're talking about it, isn't about memorizing a bunch of formulas. It's like getting a new lens for reality. It's about learning to see the hidden rules and players in basically any situation, from a simple negotiation at work to a super complex international treaty.
Let's just define it for our purposes. Think of game theory as a tool that helps you think critically about the world by asking three pretty simple questions about any situation you're in. Who are the players? What are their goals? And what strategies are they using? You can apply this to everything: your career, your family, global politics. The point is to see life not as a series of random events, but as a series of interconnected games. And that brings us to our first pillar, which is all about you. The first, and honestly, maybe the most important promise of this whole framework is deeply personal. It's about a fundamental transformation in how you operate.
This really gets to the philosophy behind the whole thing. The true point of this kind of education isn't about getting good grades or a better job. Those might be side effects. The real goal is internal, to actually become a better person. More capable, more insightful, and just more developed.
So how does that actually happen? Well, it's kind of a chain reaction. First, you become more thoughtful, right? You start analyzing yourself and the world with way more clarity. Then, that analysis naturally makes you more curious. You start asking why people are doing what they're doing. That curiosity, in turn, can make you more moral, because you start to understand the consequences of different actions on a much deeper level. And all of this culminates in you becoming more imaginative, because you can now see brand new solutions and possibilities that were invisible before.
And here's the ultimate payoff of this first pillar. When you start filtering your thinking through these qualities, thoughtfulness, curiosity, morality, imagination, the natural outcome is that you just start making better decisions, period, for your career, for your relationships, for your entire life. This isn't just some intellectual exercise. It has a direct, practical impact on everything you do.
Okay, so we've looked inward. Now let's turn that new lens outward. Pillar 2 promises that this way of thinking can help you understand the world we live in. And let's be honest, it's a world that can often feel pretty confusing and, frankly, chaotic.
The source uses some pretty blunt language here, but I think it captures a feeling a lot of us have. You look at the news and it's just frustrating. Things happen that seem completely illogical, counterproductive, or just plain nuts. This quote is basically saying, yeah, it's okay to feel that way.
And that feeling leads to this huge question, right? Why do nations and leaders and entire groups of people make choices that look like they're against their own best interests? Why does the world so often seem to operate on a logic that is just hard to follow? This is the exact puzzle that Pillar 2 helps us solve.
And here is the critical shift in perspective. It's so easy to stand on the sidelines and just label actions as stupid or wrong, but the real power of this framework comes from moving past that judgment to genuine understanding. It's all about figuring out the underlying strategic reasons, the game being played, that led to that outcome that seems so irrational on the surface.
And this applies directly to the global game board we see every day. Whether you're looking at the war in Ukraine, new tensions in the Middle East, what's happening in South America, or the strategic dance between the US and China, game theory gives you a framework. It helps you analyze the choices being made by all the players in these incredibly complex and high-stakes situations.
This brings us to the third and final pillar, which you could argue is the most empowering one of all, Because once you've improved your own thinking and you can better understand the world, well, the next logical step is to gain more control over your own future.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Predictive powers? That sounds like something out of a comic book. But it's actually completely logical. Think about it. When you really understand the rules of a game, the motivations of the players, and their likely strategies, you can start to anticipate their next moves. You can see the chain of cause and effect before it even fully plays out.
This image just captures that transformation perfectly. Without strategic thinking, life can feel like a series of random waves that just happen to you. You're always reacting, but with it, you get a kind of map. You can become proactive, able to see where things are probably headed and position yourself to navigate what's coming.
And all of this leads to the ultimate prize, which the source calls sovereignty. Now, we're not talking about sovereignty in the political sense, but in a deeply personal one. Sovereignty here means having control over your own destiny. It's the freedom that comes from understanding the forces at play around you and being able to navigate them on your own terms.
So the core idea of this final pillar is that simple. Understanding the present gives you the power to better anticipate and therefore to shape your future. It really is the pinnacle of applying strategic thought to your own life. So after hearing about these 3 powerful benefits, it's really important to set one final expectation. This isn't a switch you can just flip on. It's not some magic bullet. It's a skill you have to practice and cultivate, pretty much for the rest of your life.
The source itself calls it a lifelong struggle. But I want you to think of struggle in the best possible sense of the word. You know, like an athlete's struggle to get stronger, or an artist's struggle to perfect their craft. It's a challenging, yeah, but deeply rewarding process of constant learning and refinement.
And achieving these benefits, it requires a real commitment. It means you have to listen carefully to actually learn the frameworks. It means you have to participate by applying them in your own life. You have to follow what's happening in the world so you have real situations to analyze. And maybe most importantly, you have to be willing to spend the time. There really are no shortcuts here.
So, we end with a question for you. We've laid out the 3 promises: becoming a better version of yourself, gaining a clearer understanding of the world, and getting more control over your own future. The frameworks are there. The benefits are profound. The only real question left is, are you ready to learn the rules of the game?